My boss demanded I stay late while he partied. He didn't know I had already spoken to CEO. The office building always felt different after 7 p.m. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a hollow emptiness that made the workspace feel like an abandoned spaceship. Most nights, I could count the remaining employees on one hand. And most nights, I was one of them. Not by choice. I glanced at my watch. 8:47 p.m. My stomach grumbled, reminding me that lunch had been a hastily eaten granola bar between conference calls. I rubbed my eyes, trying to focus on the jumbled mess of a PowerPoint presentation on my screen. The numbers didn't match the spreadsheet. The conclusions contradicted the data. The entire thing looked like it had been thrown together by a high schooler rushing a last-minute assignment. Except it hadn't been. It had been thrown together by Jason Miller, my boss and the department's golden boy, at least in his own mind. "Emma, just clean it up a bit," he'd said, dropping the flash drive on my desk at 5:30 p.m. He was already wearing his designer jacket, keys dangling from his fingers. The formatting's a little off, but the content's solid. I need it perfect for tomorrow's executive meeting. I'd been working as a project coordinator at Meridian Solutions for nearly 3 years. What had started as an entry-level position with clear boundaries had morphed into something unrecognizable. Somewhere between my second promotion and Jason's divorce, I'd become his unofficial fixer. The person who made his rushed work presentable. The one who stayed late while My phone buzzed with a text message. "Just crushed a meeting with Callaway Group. Taking them to Skyline for drinks. Don't leave until that presentation shines. Career-making stuff tomorrow." Attached was a blurry photo of Jason with his arm around what I assumed was a Callaway executive, both holding whiskey glasses, city lights twinkling in the background of the rooftop bar. I set my phone down and took a deep breath. 3 years of this. 3 years of watching Jason take credit for reports I'd rewritten from scratch. 3 years of fielding angry calls from clients he'd promised impossible timelines to. 3 years of watching him charm his way through mistakes that would have gotten anyone else fired. I turned back to the disaster on my screen. This wasn't a little off. This was catastrophic. The quarterly projections were outdated. The competitive analysis contained information from companies that weren't even our competitors. And somehow, he'd managed to misspell our CEO's name. Olivia Lane had become Olivier Lane. 2 hours of work, minimum. Maybe 3. I opened the company chat system to see if anyone from the data team was still online who might help me track down the correct numbers. The office was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional ping from my computer. As I scrolled through the contact list, a notification popped up in the corner of my screen. Meeting request, Olivia Lane, CEO, Leadership Potential Pilot Program. I stared at it, certain I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Olivia Lane wanted to meet with me? The CEO who ran the company from the top floor, who most employees glimpsed maybe twice a year at company-wide meetings. I clicked to open the full message. "Ms. Edwards, based on internal performance metrics and departmental recommendations, you have been selected as a potential candidate for our confidential leadership potential pilot program. This initiative identifies employees demonstrating exceptional capability beyond their current role. Please join me for a brief discussion tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. in the executive conference room. This meeting and program are strictly confidential. Olivia Lane, Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Solutions." I read it 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each pass. Internal performance metrics? Departmental recommendations? Jason had never mentioned nominating me for anything. In fact, he had shot down my request for additional responsibilities just last month, saying I wasn't ready. My phone buzzed again. "How's it coming? Making me look good, right? These Callaway guys are loaded. Commission's gonna be sweet." I didn't respond. Instead, I turned back to the presentation disaster with renewed determination. Whatever was happening with this mysterious meeting tomorrow, I wasn't going to show up exhausted and unprepared. By 11:30 p.m., I had reconstructed the entire presentation from scratch. I hadn't just fixed Jason's mistakes. I'd rebuilt it with accurate data, compelling visuals, and a narrative flow that even the most distracted executive could follow. I saved both versions, his original and my corrected one, and emailed the final version to myself and to Jason with a simple message, completed as requested. As I gathered my things to leave, I noticed the janitor giving me a sympathetic look as he emptied my trash bin. "Another late night, Ms. Edwards?" he asked, his Jamaican accent softening the words. "You know how it goes, Earl," I said with a tired smile. "Some of us work while others take the bows." He nodded knowingly. My father used to say, "The quiet stone builds the strongest wall." Your time will come. I thought about the email from Olivia Lane as I walked to the parking garage, my footsteps echoing in the empty concrete structure. What could the CEO possibly want with me? Was I in trouble somehow? Had Jason complained about me to cover his own inadequacies? The drive home was a blur of streetlights and thoughts racing too fast to catch. By the time I reached my apartment, it was past midnight. My roommate had left a plate of pasta in the fridge with a sticky note. "Saw your text about staying late again. Eat something." I warmed it up and ate mechanically, replaying the day's events. From Jason's last-minute dump of work to the mysterious meeting request, something felt like it was shifting. For 3 years, I had been the reliable one, the fixer, the person who made everyone else look good while remaining invisible. But as I set my alarm for an early wake-up to prepare for my meeting with Olivia Lane, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow might be the day I finally stepped out of the shadows. What I didn't know then was just how right I was, and how unprepared Jason was for what would happen next. I arrived at work the next morning an hour early, jittery from too much coffee and too little sleep. The executive conference room was on the top floor, a place I'd never been before. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into a world of polished hardwood and floor-to-ceiling windows that made our department's gray cubicles look like they belonged in another century. "Ms. Edwards." A woman with a sleek silver bob approached me. "I'm Patricia, Ms. Lane's executive assistant. She's ready for you." Patricia led me down a hallway lined with awards and into a corner office where Olivia Lane sat reviewing documents. In person, our CEO was more imposing than she appeared in company-wide broadcasts. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes, sharp and analytical, assessed me immediately. "Emma Edwards," she said, motioning to a chair across from her desk. "Thank you for coming, especially after what I understand was a late night." My stomach dropped. How did she know that? "Your company access card logs all entries and exits," Olivia explained, as if reading my mind. 11:42 p.m. is quite dedicated for someone whose official hours end at 5:30. I shifted uncomfortably. "The work needed to be done, Ms. Lane. Call me Olivia, please." She closed the folder in front of her. "Do you know why you're here, Emma?" "I'm not entirely sure," I admitted. Olivia leaned forward. "I've been watching several mid-level departments over the past 6 months. There are discrepancies in performance metrics that interest me." She pulled out a sleek tablet and turned it toward me. On the screen was a performance dashboard I'd never seen before, one that tracked projects, client satisfaction ratings, and internal workflow efficiency. "Your department consistently delivers strong results," she continued. "But when I dig deeper into individual contributions, I see something curious." She swiped to a new screen. "Your digital fingerprints are on 73% of your team's successful deliverables, yet your name appears on less than 20% of the official credits." I felt my face flush. This wasn't a conversation I was prepared to have. "I'm not here to put you on the spot, Emma. I'm here because I need honest eyes and ears." Olivia's voice lowered. "I'm launching what I call my Silent Leadership Initiative. It's not on any company roster or announcement. It's my way of finding who's actually carrying this company forward and who's just making noise." She slid a small black notebook across the desk. "This is for your eyes only. I want you to document everything over the next few weeks, who's doing the work, who's taking credit, where the bottlenecks are. Don't tell anyone. Just observe and report." I stared at the notebook. "You want me to spy on my colleagues?" "I want you to help me see the truth that office obscures." Olivia's expression softened slightly. "This isn't about getting anyone in trouble. It's about identifying who is truly ready to lead and who is just loud." As I left the meeting, My mind raced with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt uncomfortable with this secret assignment. But another part, the part that had stayed until midnight fixing Jason's mistakes for 3 years, felt something else entirely. Vindication. The notebook stayed in my desk drawer that day, untouched. I wasn't sure I was ready to cross that line. Then Jason strutted in at 10:30 a.m., looking hungover behind designer sunglasses. "Emma, my presentation was a hit," he announced, dropping into my cubicle. "Callaway's going to sign. I can feel it." Olivia herself complimented the clarity of the numbers. Said it was the best quarterly projection she'd seen all year. I forced a smile. "That's great, Jason. This calls for a celebration. Make a reservation at Terrazzo for the team lunch today. My treat." He started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and can you summarize the McKinley proposal for me? Meeting got moved up to 2 p.m., and I haven't had a chance to review it." The McKinley proposal. The one I drafted 3 weeks ago and sent to him for final approval. The one he'd obviously never read. After he left, I pulled out Olivia's notebook and made my first entry. Over the next 2 weeks, the notebook filled quickly. I documented every instance where Jason passed my work off as his own. Every extended client lunch that was actually him at the golf course. Every task dumped on my desk minutes before he left for the day. And Olivia? She was watching everything unfold through me. We met weekly for progress updates where I would share my observations. She never explicitly criticized Jason, but would occasionally ask pointed questions. Who actually prepared the Henderson pitch? Or how many revisions did the quarterly forecast require? Meanwhile, Jason became even more reckless. The success of his presentation to Callaway had emboldened him. He started coming in later, leaving earlier, and dumping more work on my desk with less notice. Twice, I caught him submitting reports to upper management that I had drafted entirely, with only his name changed on the cover page. "You're the backbone of this department, Emma," he said one day, in a rare moment of apparent sincerity. "I don't know what I'd do without you. Probably learn to do your own work," I thought but didn't say. Instead, I smiled and thanked him for the recognition, all while knowing that my silent documentation was building a case he had no idea existed. What Jason failed to understand was that his success had never been his own. It had been borrowed from my late nights, my attention to detail, my willingness to stay silent. And borrowed things eventually need to be returned. I was about to call in the debt, but first, Jason would dig himself just a little deeper. 3 weeks into Olivia's silent initiative, I'd settled into a strange double life. By day, I was the same reliable Emma Edwards, fixing Jason's mistakes and smiling through his credit-taking. By night, I was Olivia's covert analyst, documenting the dysfunction that had become normalized in our department. Thursday started like any other day. I arrived early to prepare for our weekly team meeting, printed the reports Jason would need, and placed them on his chair with key sections highlighted, a habit I developed after realizing he rarely read anything in full before meetings. By noon, Jason still hadn't arrived. The morning team meeting had been postponed twice, then finally run by me when it became clear he wouldn't show. At 12:43, my phone buzzed with a text. "Caught in traffic. Run numbers on Alpine account. Need comprehensive report by tomorrow a.m. The Alpine account, our newest client and potentially our largest. The one Jason had assured senior management he was personally handling. The one he'd apparently done nothing on. I was deep into financial projections for Alpine when Jason finally swept into the office at 2:30 p.m., smelling faintly of whiskey and wearing yesterday's shirt poorly disguised under a different tie. "Emma, working on Alpine? Perfect." He didn't apologize for his absence or the last-minute request. Instead, he perched on the edge of my desk and lowered his voice. "Listen, we've got a situation. The VPs want to review Alpine tomorrow. They've heard rumors we're dropping the ball." "We?" I questioned before I could stop myself. Jason's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, we. As a team. That's how it works, Emma. We succeed together. We fail together." Except we didn't. In the 3 years I'd worked under Jason, success had always been his alone while failures were distributed among the team. usually landing heaviest on me. "I need you to make this perfect," he continued, oblivious to my thoughts. "The VPs are looking for any excuse to move Alpine to Thompson's team." Thompson headed the department adjacent to ours, the department that operated with actual teamwork and transparency. The department I'd applied to twice, only to have Jason block my transfer requests claiming I was essential to ongoing projects. "I'll do my best," I said, "but I have the quarterly review this afternoon and—" "Cancel it," Jason interrupted. "This takes priority. The quarterly review is with finance. We can't just—" "Fine," he huffed. "Handle that, then stay and finish Alpine. Whatever it takes." For the rest of the afternoon, I juggled my actual responsibilities with the massive undertaking Jason had dropped in my lap. The quarterly review with finance stretched longer than expected because, surprise, Jason had reported figures that didn't match our actual spending. By the time I got back to the Alpine report, it was after 6 p.m. and the office was emptying rapidly. At 6:37, Jason appeared at my cubicle. He'd changed into a tailored charcoal suit that definitely wasn't what he'd worn to the office. "How's Alpine coming?" he asked, adjusting his cufflinks, the expensive ones his ex-wife had given him that he only wore for power meetings. "I've compiled the basic data, but the analysis will take hours," I replied honestly. "The formatting alone." "Just fix it," he cut me off, dropping a flash drive on my desk. "Here's what I started with. It's got all my notes. The foundation's solid, just needs your, touch." I plugged in the drive and opened the file while he hovered. It wasn't a foundation. It wasn't even a complete document. It was 3 slides of generic statements about Alpine's market potential and synergistic opportunities, corporate buzzwords that said absolutely nothing. "This is not much to work with," I said carefully. "It's all about the presentation, Emma. You're good at making things pretty." He checked his watch. "I've got to run. Dinner with the VPs tonight. Gotta get in their heads before tomorrow's meeting." My tired brain finally connected the dots. "You have dinner with the VPs tonight? The same VPs who want to review Alpine tomorrow?" "Exactly." He flashed what he thought was a charming smile. "I'll soften them up tonight, then blow them away with our report tomorrow. It's strategy, Emma." As he headed for the door, he called back over his shoulder, "Don't leave until that garbage is readable. My career's riding on this." And just like that, I was alone in the office again, staring at a mess I was somehow expected to transform into gold by morning. I sat there for several minutes, the weight of it all pressing down on me. Then I reached for my bag and pulled out Olivia's black notebook. "Under today's date," I wrote, "Jason arrived 2:30 p.m. Delegated entire Alpine account report, due tomorrow, that he claimed to be personally handling. Left at 6:45 p.m. for dinner with VPs, while wearing party clothes and smelling of alcohol. Left me with 3 slides of meaningless text and instructions to fix this garbage." Then I did something I'd never done before. I took photos of his work and attached them to an email addressed to the secure folder Olivia had created for our communications. I added a short note. "This is his 3rd time this week." The submission felt both terrifying and liberating. For years, I'd protected Jason, fixed his mistakes, covered his absences. Not anymore. I worked until 11:30, 4 p.m. that night. Not for Jason, but for myself. I created a comprehensive, data-driven analysis of the Alpine account that would impress even the most skeptical VP. I included projections, risk assessments, and strategic recommendations based on my own research. At the bottom of the final slide, in small but readable font, I added, "Prepared by Emma Edwards." Then I sent 2 versions to my secure email, Jason's original 3 slides and my completed presentation. I didn't send either to Jason directly. As I packed up to leave, I felt something shift inside me. The fear that had kept me working late, accepting credit theft, and tolerating disrespect, it was gone. In its place was something cooler and more powerful: certainty. Jason would arrive tomorrow unprepared, expecting to find my work in his inbox. He would panic when he realized it wasn't there. And for once, I wouldn't rush to save him. The game was about to change, and Jason had no idea he'd already lost. I arrived at work the next morning feeling strangely calm. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't rushing to protect Jason from his own incompetence. I'd slept only 5 hours, but a curious energy hummed through me, the kind that comes with knowing something big is about to happen. The office was already buzzing when I walked in. Word had spread that the VPs would be reviewing the Alpine account at 10 a.m. Several colleagues shot me sympathetic looks. They all knew whose shoulders this presentation actually rested on. Emma. Jason's voice cut through the office noise. He was pacing by my cubicle, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. He didn't look like someone who'd had a productive dinner with VPs. He looked like someone who'd closed down a bar. "Where's the Alpine presentation?" he demanded, not bothering with "good morning." I set down my coffee calmly. "Good morning, Jason. How was your dinner with the VPs?" His expression flickered between confusion and suspicion.
"Fine. Great."
"They're totally on board. Where's the presentation I asked you to finish?" "I completed a comprehensive report on Alpine," I replied, carefully choosing my words. "I have it right here." I patted my laptop bag. Relief washed over his face. "Thank God. Email it to me now. I need to review it before." "I thought we could go through it together," I interrupted. "Since you laid the foundation, I want to make sure the final product aligns with your vision." Panic darted across his features. "No time for that. Meeting's in an hour. Just send it and I'll fill in any gaps." "Fill in gaps in a report you supposedly created?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Jason's eyes narrowed. "What's gotten into you lately? Just send me the damn file." Before I could respond, Patricia from Olivia's office appeared at the entrance to our department. The room fell silent. Executive floor staff rarely ventured down to our level. "Good morning," Patricia announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet space. "Ms. Lane will be joining your 10 a.m. Alpine review." A wave of murmurs swept through the office. Olivia Lane attending a departmental review was unprecedented. Her presence was reserved for board meetings and major client acquisitions. Patricia's eyes found me. "Ms. Edwards, Ms. Lane would like you to bring an extra copy of the presentation materials." As she turned to leave, Jason grabbed my arm. "Send me the file.
Now."
His whisper was desperate, his grip tight enough to hurt. I pulled away. "I need to prepare these copies for Ms. Lane." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. The conference room was hastily reorganized. Someone ordered premium coffee service. Marketing people who had nothing to do with Alpine suddenly found reasons to attend. At 9:55, Jason cornered me in the copy room. "This is ridiculous, Emma. We're a team, remember? Give me the presentation." I handed him a printed copy. "Here you go." He flipped through it frantically, eyes widening at the depth of analysis, the clean data visualizations, the executive summary that actually said something meaningful. "This is good," he admitted. "But I need the digital file. I need to make it look like you created it." I finished for him. His face hardened. "You work for me, Emma. Don't forget that."
"No, Jason."
"We both work for Meridian Solutions." I walked past him toward the conference room, where people were already gathering. At exactly 10 a.m., Olivia Lane walked into the conference room. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Unlike her perfectly polished appearance in our private meeting, today she wore a deep burgundy suit that commanded attention. Her presence transformed the ordinary conference room into a stage where careers might be made or broken. "Good morning," she said, taking a seat at the head of the table. "I understand we're discussing the Alpine account today." Jason, who had slid into the room moments after her, straightened his tie and stepped forward. "Yes, Ms. Lane. I've prepared a comprehensive analysis of Alpine's potential integration with our services." Olivia nodded. "Excellent. Please proceed." Jason fumbled with his laptop, realizing he still didn't have the digital file. "I'll just use the printed version for now. Having some technical difficulties." As he began stumbling through my report, clearly seeing much of it for the first time, I watched Olivia's expression. Her eyes moved between Jason and me, noting every hesitation, every moment when he couldn't answer a basic question about data he was presenting. 15 minutes in, during a particularly awkward pause after a VP asked about methodology, Olivia spoke up. "Jason, you mentioned earlier that you prepared this analysis," she said, her tone measured. Yet the document footer says, "Prepared by Emma Edwards." The room went silent. Jason flipped to the last page, his face draining of color as he spotted my attribution. "That's a formatting error," he stammered. "Emma helps with the polish, but the substance is—" "I'm curious about your process," Olivia interrupted. "Emma, can you walk us through how this report was developed?" All eyes turned to me. This was the moment, the culmination of 3 years of silent work and 3 weeks of documentation. "Of course," I replied, opening my laptop. "I'd be happy to explain our methodology." For the next 20 minutes, I walked through the Alpine analysis with confidence and clarity. I answered technical questions, explained strategic decisions, and outlined next steps. When I finished, the room was quiet, but it was a different kind of silence, not awkward, but impressed. Olivia closed her notebook. "Thank you, Emma. That was exceptionally clear." She turned to Jason, who had retreated to a chair against the wall. "Jason, I'd like you to stop by my office after this meeting for a quick chat." The rest of the meeting proceeded without Jason saying another word. As we filed out afterward, he brushed past me, muttering, "You're finished here." But the strange thing was, I didn't feel finished. I felt like I was just beginning. Olivia caught my eye as she left and gave me the slightest nod, a gesture so subtle that no one else would have noticed it, but its meaning was unmistakable. The test was over, and I had passed. The aftermath of the Alpine presentation rippled through the office like a stone dropped in still water. By lunchtime, everyone knew that Jason had been summoned to Olivia's office. By mid-afternoon, whispers circulated that he'd left the building with security escorting him to his car. By the end of the day, his office door remained closed, a light still visible under the door, but no sign of Jason himself. I tried to focus on my work, but found it nearly impossible with colleagues stopping by my cubicle every few minutes. "Is it true?" Mia from marketing whispered. "Did Jason really try to pass off your entire presentation as his own?" "I heard Olivia tore him apart in front of all the VPs," said Derek from finance, not bothering to lower his voice. I deflected each inquiry with the same response. "I don't know any more than you do." But of course I did. I knew much more. I knew about the black notebook filled with 3 weeks of documented evidence. I knew about the confidential folder where I'd uploaded comparison files showing Jason's work versus mine. What I didn't know was what was happening behind closed doors at the executive level. At 4:45 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. My office. 5 p.m.
OL.
15 minutes later, I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor for the second time in 3 weeks. This time, Patricia didn't greet me. The hallway was empty, most of the offices dark. Only a single light remained on at the far end, Olivia's office. She was standing at the window when I entered, looking out at the city's skyline turning golden in the evening light. "Close the door, Emma," she said without turning around. I did as instructed, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Do you know why I started the Silent Leadership Initiative?" Olivia asked, still facing the window. "To find out who's really doing the work," I replied. She turned now, a slight smile on her face. "That's part of it, but it's more than that." She gestured for me to sit. When I became CEO 2 years ago, I inherited an executive team chosen by my predecessor. 6 men who'd been running their departments like personal fiefdoms for over a decade. She took her own seat behind the desk. Within my first month, I realized there was a pattern. High-performing departments with mediocre leaders taking credit for the work of their subordinates, usually women, usually without recognition or advancement opportunities. I swallowed hard, the description hitting uncomfortably close to home. "The thing about corporate," Olivia continued, "is that evidence beats accusations every time. I couldn't just replace these directors based on my suspicions. I needed proof of who is truly driving success." She opened a folder on her desk, my folder. 3 weeks of meticulous documentation spread out before her. "What you've provided here, Emma, isn't just a case against Jason Miller. It's a window into a dysfunctional system that rewards the wrong behaviors and the wrong people. She closed the folder and looked at me directly. Jason is on administrative leave pending an internal review. The words hung in the air between us. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, an unexpected wave of guilt washed over me. Did I get him fired? I asked quietly. Olivia's expression softened slightly. You didn't do anything to Jason that he didn't do to himself. The Alpine presentation was just the tipping point in a pattern of behavior that's been documented for months. Months, I echoed. But I only started keeping records 3 weeks ago. You weren't the first person I asked to observe Jason, she replied. Just the most thorough. And the only one who had the courage to stand her ground when it mattered. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across to me. HR will be conducting interviews with everyone in your department next week. The official story is that Jason is taking personal leave. I'd appreciate your discretion until the process is complete. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. In the meantime, she continued, gesturing to the envelope, we'd like you to step in as interim department lead. The words didn't register at first. When they did, I nearly laughed from shock. Me? But I've never managed anyone. I don't have the title or the experience or... You've been doing the job already, Olivia interrupted. You've just been letting someone else take the credit. This is merely making official what has been happening for years. She leaned forward. The envelope contains the details, compensation adjustment, team structure, expectations. Take the weekend to think about it. But Emma, her voice softened, you've already proven you can do this. You've been doing it all along. I didn't cry, not there in Olivia's office. I maintained my composure, accepted the envelope with steady hands, and thanked her professionally. But in the elevator riding down, alone with my reflection in the polished doors, I allowed myself a smile that started small and grew until it felt like it might split my face. The following Monday, I arrived at work to find Jason's nameplate removed from his office door. In its place was a temporary sign, Emma Edwards, Interim Department Director. My former cubicle had already been cleaned out. My few personal items moved to the corner office. On the desk sat a small plant with a note in Patricia's elegant handwriting. From Olivia, may your leadership flourish. The day passed in a dizzying blur of meetings. HR representatives pulled team members one by one into conference rooms for interviews. Questions about Jason's management style, work distribution, and credit allocation echoed down hallways. I kept my head down, focusing on learning the systems and processes I'd need to master in my new role. By Wednesday, the team dynamics had shifted palpably. People who had barely acknowledged me before now stopped by with coffee and questions. Those who had been friendly grew cautious, uncertain of how to navigate our new power dynamic. On Friday afternoon, as I was reviewing the department budget, a document I'd never been allowed to see under Jason's leadership, Mia appeared at my door. Is it true? She asked, the same question she'd posed days earlier, but with a different weight now. Is what true? That Jason's never coming back. That you're not just keeping his seat warm. I set down my pen and considered my response carefully. Olivia had asked for discretion, but rumors were already spreading. Nothing is permanent in corporate America, I replied diplomatically. But I'm not just keeping anyone's seat warm. This department is going to change. It wasn't until Mia left that I allowed myself to absorb the reality of what was happening. I wasn't just replacing Jason temporarily. Olivia had made it clear this was a trial for something much bigger. The silent observer had become the leader, and there was nothing temporary about it. 4 months can change everything. As I walked through the department on a bright Thursday morning, I hardly recognized it as the same space where I'd spent 3 years of my career. The physical layout remained unchanged, same cubicles, same conference rooms, same coffee station that perpetually ran out of creamer. But the energy had transformed completely. Gone was the culture of last-minute panic and blame-shifting that had defined Jason's leadership. In its place, a steady rhythm of collaboration and accountability had emerged. Emma, do you have a minute? Tyler, a data analyst who'd barely spoken to me during my years as Jason's fixer, waved me over to his desk. "I think I found something interesting in the Westbrook numbers." I leaned over to look at his screen where he'd identified a pattern in client spending that could help us predict future needs. Under Jason, this insight would have been brushed aside or, worse, claimed by Jason himself and presented without context. "This is excellent work, Tyler," I said. "Can you present this at tomorrow's strategy meeting? The team should hear this directly from you." His face lit up with surprise and pride. "Really? Yeah, I'd be happy to." These small moments had become my favorite part of leadership, watching people flourish when given the space and recognition they deserved. Back in my office, no longer feeling like Jason's space I was temporarily occupying, I found a calendar notification for my monthly check-in with Olivia. For months in, these meetings had evolved from nervous progress reports to strategic planning sessions where she treated me as a valued colleague rather than a subordinate on probation. As I gathered my notes, my phone buzzed with a text from my roommate. "Ran into guess who at Groundwork Coffee? Your former boss. Looks rough. Asked if you were still playing department head." Should I have punched him? I smiled despite myself. Jason had indeed vanished from Meridian Solutions, his name scrubbed from client accounts and organizational charts. The official story remained vague. "Pursuing other opportunities" was the HR-approved phrase. But whispers persisted that he'd been quietly blacklisted throughout the industry. I hadn't wasted much time thinking about him. Taking over a department in disarray had consumed every waking hour of my first month. Client relationships needed repair, team members needed reassurance, and years of disorganized processes needed overhaul. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, no longer an intimidating foreign territory, but a familiar destination. Patricia greeted me with a warm smile. "She's ready for you," she said, then added in a lower voice, and in a very good mood. The board meeting went exceptionally well this morning. Olivia's office door stood open. She was reviewing documents, but looked up immediately when I entered, gesturing to the chair across from her desk, the same chair where, for months ago, she'd handed me a black notebook and changed the trajectory of my career. "Emma," she greeted me warmly. "Let's skip the formalities today. I want to discuss something important." My stomach tightened instinctively. Despite my success in the role, a part of me still waited for the other shoe to drop, for someone to realize I didn't belong at this level. "The board has approved my restructuring proposal," Olivia continued. "Effective next month, we're flattening middle management and creating senior director positions to oversee broader functional areas." She slid a document across the desk. "This is the formal offer. Senior Director of Client Strategy, overseeing your current department plus Thompson's group." I stared at the paper, struggling to process what this meant. Thompson's department was larger than mine, with more prestigious accounts and a longer history of success. "You want me to lead both departments?" I asked, my voice embarrassingly small. "I want you to integrate them into one cohesive unit," Olivia corrected. "Your analytical skills combined with your emotional intelligence make you uniquely qualified for this challenge." She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You know, when I first launched the Silent Leadership Initiative, I expected to uncover problems. What I didn't expect was to find someone like you, someone who had been hiding in plain sight for years." "I wasn't hiding," I said, finding my voice. "I just didn't know how to be seen. And now," I thought about the changes I'd implemented over the past 4 months. The transparent project management system where everyone's contributions were visible. The collaborative planning sessions that replaced Jason's closed-door dictates. The regular recognition of team members' work in company-wide communications. "Now I make sure everyone is seen," I replied. Olivia smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually serious face. "Exactly why you're the right person for this role." As I left her office, promotion paperwork in hand, I caught my reflection in the glass walls of the executive suite. I looked different, confident in a way that came from within rather than from external validation. On my way back to my department, soon to be just one part of my expanded responsibility, I passed the wall of executive portraits near the elevators. A maintenance worker was hanging a new frame, and I slowed my steps when I realized it was mine. Not yet installed, but prepared, waiting for the official announcement. I walked through the main workspace, observing my team engaged in their tasks. Some noticed me and waved. Others were too absorbed in their work to look up. This was what real leadership looked like, not demanding attention, but creating an environment where people could do their best work. Back in my office, I found a small package on my desk with a note from Olivia for the next chapter. Inside was a black notebook, identical to the one she'd given me 4 months ago, but with one difference. Embossed on the cover in silver lettering was my new title, Senior Director. I ran my fingers over the embossed letters, thinking about how quickly life can change. For months ago, I'd been staying late cleaning up someone else's mistakes. Now I was leading a department, soon to be 2, with the authority to implement my own vision. Some days I still stay late, but it's by choice, not orders. The work matters to me in a way it never did when I was merely executing someone else's flawed vision. And sometimes, when I pass Olivia in the hallway, she gives me that same knowing smile from the day Jason left. The smile that says, "This is what happens when the right person is finally in the right position." Jason partied while I worked. What he didn't realize was, he wasn't just failing at his job. He was training his replacement,